Welcome, welcome, welcome. You are joining us today for the last of our four-part series of all the stories from the front lines, which are coming from the book Scale with Purpose. Here, you can see it in the weird, sort of visual there that I keep moving. It's funny, I put it in front of my face and it disappear. Welcome, welcome. I'm Ian Vason, Jason Blummer. We have another one, Jason here, Jason Ackerman.
Yes.
Know us. You can check us out in the previous three webinars and you'll learn about us in those ones. So, co-founder of Karbon, and Jason, you want to say anything?
Yeah. Hey, hey, running Blummer CPAs for 25 years. What is wrong with me? And Thriveal, we just celebrated our 15th anniversary. So very exciting. Uh, love it. So love all of you firm builders and scalers, and we're doing it too. And man, this is not easy stuff. So my hat's off to all of you who do this work. So glad to be here with such smart people.
And we'll talk about today's about the culture builder. So we got a new category. For those of you, if you want to check it out, it'll launch on December 9th. Scale with Purpose. You can check out all the details, scalewithpurpose.info. There's a mailing group or a book group that's in there, so you can go ahead and check that for navigation. And what you'll learn about is all the lovely people that are here sharing this floor with us today. So we have, again, a whole cadre of folks today, and their stories are in the book. So go ahead, next slide, Jason. And so today is all about the culture builders. And you're going to learn around, when we talk about scaling, we talk about building companies and firms, it really comes down to your purpose. It really comes back to the people that you employ and how you bring that together. And so our four different firms here represented are, say hi, Bernie and Jason.
Hello, I'm Bernie Ackerman and started this firm 48 years ago. And
Hmm.
and Jason, say something.
I uh I was not born when he started the firm. I joined 12 years ago.
But Jason's trying to start his own with Wealth Rabbit, so he's got his own sort of piece of that. So. And then Zane's joining us from Protea Financial. Zane, say hello.
Everybody, Zane Stevens. Yep, I run Protea Financial. We help wineries be successful.
And Mike Libbey. We don't have Ross on here, but we do have Mike, so we could have gone with the multiple son father combos. But Mike, say hello.
It could have been a generational webinar we had here next time. Anyways, hi
That's
everybody.
right.
I'm Mike Libbey, partner and COO at YBL Accounting, and happy to be here.
And then last but not least, who actually starts the book off for us is our lovely Jennifer Green from Jade Consulting.
Thank you. Yeah, Jennifer Green, Jade Consulting up in Canada. We're 15 women now all across Canada. Myself and my business partner, Michelle Phillip, and just be getting through every day, loving what we do, and just enjoying waking up and getting back at it.
There's all your other pictures. Let's go to the next slide. We're going to get in the meat of it. We've got five different, essentially five people, four different subtopics, and it's all about culture. And so we want to really get into the substance of it. So we're going to get through the pleasantries here quick. Jason, you want to talk about what we're talking about today?
Yes, pumped. So this is exciting. Yeah. So this is the fourth of a Karbon webinar series where actually the people we interviewed in the book we just launched are coming to all of these webinars. And the past three webinars have been pretty crazy, really good. The people and the questions that we got were pretty amazing. What we did is we grouped all the interviewees for the book into kind of four categories, and all of y'all fell out into this culture-based purpose behind why you're building, metrics and things like that, or why your culture may have led you to change some of the things in your firm. And that's kind of been the theme of all these webinars is these firm owners have changed their companies a lot, scaled them. So they've done a lot of hard work, scaling them up, sometimes scaling them down. Turns out that's necessary sometimes. Who knew? That's so it's painful kind of expanding and shrinking as you need to, but it's great when you do it as a culture. So we're going to dive in with some big questions. And I guess, Ian, you'll manage any kind of chat that comes up, right? All right, cool.
The chat guy.
All right. So Bernie and Jason, father, son, are here. And so we want to ask you this question. How do you measure team productivity and project profitability without time tracking? Oh, Y'all don't track time. We don't either in our firm. And what alternative systems and metrics have you built to maintain accountability and pricing accuracy? That's a
Okay.
big question.
All right, Jason, I'll start off first. And first of all, I am Bernie Ackerman, and we are a firm of 35 folks in the accounting practice, and we have a wealth division as well that has 7 folks. And as I said earlier, I started the firm 48 years ago in the olden days of accounting. And my son Jason came aboard 12 years ago now. And our biggest change, and you know, culture building is not only financial building, but it's people building, and we figured out that one of the things that we wanted to do to attract really good people in our firm is to make a very attractable culture. And so one of the first things we did, I think 12 years ago, 11 years ago now, we got rid of our timesheets. We were probably in the first 5% of the firms in the country that got rid of timesheets. And that was a big culture change for us. Number one, our people in our firm, they were overjoyed not having to keep timesheets. It was a financial deal for us too, because it eliminated at that time about $150,000 of administrative costs, keeping time, billing time, collecting for your time, and dealing with your customers that are complaining about your time. So that change really helped change our culture. We get the questions. My son Jason and I, we meet with 20 CPA firms twice a year, and we've been trying to convince them for 10 years now to get rid of their timesheets, and none of them have. And we always get the same questions about keeping time and measuring your how you do your billing. And the first thing you have to learn is that pricing has nothing to do with timesheets. They're two different things. We're talking about inputs and outputs. So what we discovered is that we weren't really interested that much in our inputs. We were interested almost 100% in our outputs. And our outputs are measured by our billing and by our tasks that our people perform. And I'll give credit to Karbon. Karbon has really helped us. We were one of the first Karbon users 10 years ago, and Karbon got us on a processing system where we were able to assign tasks, and our whole firm is task oriented. Everyone's assigned tasks. They know their jobs they have to do, and we don't care if it takes them 2 minutes to do it, or 2 hours to do it, or 2 days to do it. The main thing is that they have tasks assigned and they get them completed on a timely basis. So you're going to say, well, how do you know? The question we get almost 100% of the time is, how do you know that your people are efficient or productive? And you know that by the tasks that they complete and the billings that they do. We have our number one metric. Well, to know how much income we make, we have an income statement. Most accountants understand income statements. So if your income statement is very positive, then you're doing a pretty good job. Number two is that we measure our productivity by billings per employee. So we know that if their billings are at a certain level that we that we maintain for them, we know that they're where they should be on a productive standpoint. We also measure the number of tasks that each of our team members have. So that's sort of how we measure our capacity. If someone is got fewer tasks than we think they should have, then the customers start getting more tasks get assigned to them. And that's really how simple it is. The most important thing about getting this kind of culture, getting rid of timesheets and not measuring time, is just get out of your mind how long something that you're not concerned about how long it takes to do a task, and how many hours it's going to take. It's more important of what the billing is for that task, and making sure that you've done your value billing correctly. We do all our billing in advance. We We try to measure any scope creep that happens by using data that we actually get from Karbon based on number of emails and contact points that we have with our customers. And I think I'm close to my 7 minutes. Jason, do you have anything to say?
I have 3 seconds to add something here. But yeah, I think the big thing is like you're not worried about winning we price up front. So you're not going to get everyone right, and that's okay. You have to look at it as the whole. Like my dad said, look at the income statement. If you know at the beginning of if we do it right, we know at the beginning of the year our whole income statement because we know how much we're going to bill the clients. We have fixed price agreements, and then we know how much our costs are. So it's pretty actually easy to manage the firm that way, instead of made up time numbers. Because also time is not the best for the client. The client doesn't care about how long it takes to do something. They want that output. And time, if you're billing by time, you want to spend more time on something because you can charge more, whereas you can really charge more based on value. So once you get, like my dad said, that mindset is the big change. And you're not gonna win them all. But if you win most, you're good.
Yeah. Well, one thing that's key is we have a long conversation about this in the book, but we don't fall down on, value pricing's right, billing by the hour is right, timesheets are right. We kind of throw that conversation out there. We do lean one way in the book, but none of it's perfect. And I think we all get on one side or the other and we go, well, mine's right, yours is wrong. And I think we're managing people, so that's why it's not perfect, no matter what you're doing. So, like you said, Jason, you're trying to do your best. You're getting the best information you can, whether you're doing either one of those. So, I don't know, Ian, if you have a follow up, or if anybody else
There's a
has
couple
thoughts
there's
about time and
a couple of questions. That the first thing is when we wrote the book, Jason, we argued about this pretty extensively. I think I was right and you were wrong, but then you explained that you were right and I was wrong. And I know Zane's here too, so it's interesting because Zane was up in that same chapter. And as Zane and I think are aligned a little bit in terms of productivity measurement. And again, I do, ultimately when you're talking about pricing and how you're billing, those are separate conversations than measuring someone's productivity. So again, they get convoluted together. To throw the question out there for you guys and whether you're comfortable in answering it. One was, are your tax managers, I assume that's what the TM stands for, paid per task? And then the other one was, what is your estimated billings per employee? We had talked to, Mo's on, he was doing essentially revenue per employee as a measurement of capacity. So are you taking that into account, guys, when you're talking about estimated billings per employee?
Yeah, I mean, we do it on full-time equivalent. We include our whole team, which is our admin too, and we're running at about $201,000 per team member.
Yeah, and by the way, the TM was team member. It wasn't a tax manager. So thanks,
Okay.
thanks, Mark.
We don't have titles either, so we wouldn't.
Yeah, I don't do the acronym game too well. It's a Canadian thing. Thanks. I think we got good Canadian representation, so I can get a translation here. Appreciate that.
And I'll tell you, that's our most important KPI that we use, is that. But we also we would like to have a 20% margin before owners get paid.
Yeah, we want our EBITDA to be 20%.
Yeah,
it's bottom line.
So those are our two big KPIs.
Yeah.
And it's interesting because we heard that from Steph Hines too, previously in terms of how she views the business as well. So again, there's certain patterns that we've seen throughout these 4 webinars per se. Any for the folks out there on the panel here, any questions you guys have or thoughts in terms of what Jason and Bernie were talking about?
I would say, yeah, if there's one piece of advice or one thing that you believe is either a myth or people are misinformed about, what would you think that it would be? I mean, it's terrifying to think of taking that leap. What is one thing that a lot of people focus on that they shouldn't be?
I think they focus on the cost of their product, on the cost of preparing an individual return, or the cost of preparing a corporate return. In our sessions with other CPA firms, they ask us how much does it cost us to prepare an individual return? Well, we don't know. I don't know what the actual cost is, and I don't really care. What I care about, again, is is getting the proper price, the value price that a customer is comfortable with and that we're comfortable with, and gut wise, we know we're making money.
Yeah.
So I think
which
that's
is
probably where
talks.
I think that's probably where a lot of people get caught up is looking at it on a per project basis or a per return basis, whereas you guys are just looking at the bigger picture, not only necessarily a client and whatever services those are, but the company as a whole, and being comfortable with potentially losing money on some of those and not knowing you might be losing money.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And same with capacity too. A lot of firm leaders are concerned about capacity of each of their team members. And we look at, I think my Jason group, we look at it as capacity for the whole firm. So, I mean, if somebody's not full capacity and somebody's a little bit more than capacity, then that's okay. I mean, but we'll try to get it apportioned appropriately, but it's not, it's not a killer factor in your firm if you don't have capacity exactly correct.
Yeah. Well, this and scaling a services firm, which is what our book is about, is a very complicated. It's a complex thing that we do to expand through other people. So I love that y'all are we're not committed to a certain thing. We're all understanding how hard it is, but y'all have developed some metrics too that do help you understanding that we're looking at it the way we look at our clients' work, which is helping the company be profitable, which is what we do. So when we start going, is a tax return profitable or is a client profitable? Those are harder things to track, sometimes impossible. If you're trying to allocate true costs and profit, you'd have to assign some portion of the toilet paper costs to all of your clients so you can know the true client profitability.
Last question got thrown in here, and I know the answer, but I'm gonna have you guys do it, which is, do you pay your employees on a percentage of revenue or salary?
It's salary and bonus is how we do it.
Okay, I'm going to throw this last question. Great one from Roxanne. And then, just like Jason and I had the different sides of this argument, Zane, I'm going to have you come in. And so the question that Roxanne put in, which is, again, you guys will answer it, and then Zane, I'm going to have you come on and answer it, which was, how do you get employees to be honest about available capacity and workload? This is to Jason and Bernie.
Oh, this is our question. Well, like I said, we monitor their capacity with billings and tasks.
Yeah,
So it's not lying. It's not lying on the timesheet or that kind of thing.
We give them goals based on however long they've been here. Like they know if they bill a lot, they're going to make more money. So it's not a dollar for dollar thing. It's not a percentage, but that's the concept. So if they're working more, they're going to make more money.
And we're very transparent. All of our people, they have access to this information.
They know how much everyone's billing.
Yep, they know that what their peers are doing.
And one thing you'll notice here is for everyone that's on this panel is in terms of that knowledge of their employees, intimate knowledge of the employees in terms of working with them and so forth. And so that gives you a lot more freedom and also a lot more, I would say, care and confidence in what you're able to deliver. So we're gonna switch over gears to Zane. So Jason, you want to take us through this one? Because again, just like again for me on the productivity is really important. So Zane and we agree on this for this element. So Jason, take us away.
Yeah. Well, we had the Ackermans talk to us about not using timesheets, but Zane and his firm does use timesheets, and we're all probably successful firm owners. That whatever that term successful means, I know a lot of us don't feel successful through the ups and downs of building these companies. But Zane, for you, how do you use time tracking data to prevent burnout? Because I think, from a culture perspective, that's something you care a lot about, rather than just measure, billability, I guess, of each person. And what specific analytics and dashboards do you use to manage capacity with your team?
It's interesting because we look at, timesheets in a very opposite view. I use timesheets, love timesheets. I think they're a good tool for the business. But at the same time, I'm looking at the same metrics. I look at my P&L, I look at revenue per person, and I look at profits before owner's salary. And those are the metrics that are important to me. I have the details on billability and chargeability and all those other metrics, but I don't actually care about them that much. They're nice to look at, and they can fuel conversations. But it was 2014 when I started my firm, and I was this fresh off the boat South African living in California, and decided to just start this firm. And my first hire was out in South Africa, 10 time zones apart. And I was going, how the heck am I going to manage this person in another country that I can't see, can't hear, can't even visit? Um, but I can, obviously have phone calls with them, have conversations, check in on them. But we're tracking time anyway. I'm in a pretty old school environment, being the wine industry. They like to know how many hours are being spent on the work, and they want to be billed that way. And that's how we started the firm. What I realized when we were tracking timesheets is that there was more information in there than just the billing. What I could spot from a timesheet is if somebody was having a hard time, not just in their work, but in their personal life as well, because it would stand out. A person who was working 8 to 5 on a normal day, all of a sudden not working 8 to 5. All of a sudden they're working some night hours. Maybe they're working early in the morning. And I could look at their timesheet and go, hey, what's going on? Is there something happening in your life? Do you need some additional support? And they'll be like, you know what? I had a really sick kid or parent, or, my spouse's timetable has changed and I'm having to do a lot more runaround. And we could identify problems in their lives, either work or personal, and use that information to then give them the support that they need to make them feel more safe and trusted, and give them, tools to be able to manage that situation, or adjust schedules, or adjust timelines, or adjust deadlines to assist. We also use them to be able to allow them to have conversations with team members and going, hey, I understand I normally need to get this to you by 2 o'clock every day, but I actually need to do a school pickup at this time. We picked it up in the timesheets, we had the conversation, and all of a sudden we were able to make adjustments. We find it also really important. I look at capacity as a total number as well. Do we have capacity in the firm? Yes or no? Fantastic. But I also want to know about hotspots. It's okay if one person's a little bit over and somebody's a little bit under, but I'm worried about that person that all of a sudden hours have spiked up. What's the reason for that? Oh, we've taken on additional work for this project. Oh, we've taken on some one-time work that's just coming in. All of a sudden, this client has an audit or a sales tax audit has popped up, and now they're under a lot of pressure. And if we didn't have that data, I hire good people that just care about getting the job done. They truly care about their clients. They would work themselves into the ground to make sure that we hit those deadlines, to support our clients and make sure they can be successful. And if we don't have a tool to be able to be like, grab them by the collar and go, no, no, you're working too hard. Let's take a few steps back. Maybe you need some time off. It becomes really difficult. We're in 2 countries. I'm in our, office, but I'm only here because my wife kicks me out the house to go work somewhere else. Everybody's at home. So I need to be able to keep track of my people. I need to be able to look after my people. And we obviously have tons of touch points between myself, account managers, HR. We make sure we have those conversations, but timesheets are another way to be able to identify problems early and jump in and deal with them.
Okay, that makes sense. So they're kind of like early warning systems from a cultural perspective. So Zane, what you're saying is you track time to make money, right? Because I think that produces your invoices and revenue too.
Yeah, it's like 40-60 at the moment from time. We 60%
Okay.
on hourly basis, 40% on, the fixed fee agreements.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. So a lot of it is a cultural perspective. You're trying to watch this data and see things that are reflecting the team members' angst or their trouble or something like that. And you'll use the data to kind of guide you through that cultural care perspective.
Yeah. So, I mean, we've evolved since then. The timesheets is just a part of it. We also use a weekly check-in system called 15/5. We have regular call schedules. So all of those tools together pick up to be able to pick up problems in the situation where, when somebody resigns, we know they were going to resign. Like it was very clear from their check-ins and their timesheets that, oh, look, they've got a gap in the middle of the day every day for this week. Obviously, they were interviewing somewhere. Is there anything we can do about it? We can try. But it's not going to surprise us when that resignation comes in 2 weeks' time, because we can see that they've been out looking for something else.
Mm.
One of the things is when we had the conversation, Zane, and we talked on the interviews around level of capacity and how close someone was getting to 100% capacity. And one of the fascinating things about you and your firm was you guys sit at a very, very high level of capacity usage at 90-95, where
Mhm.
most firms would usually float somewhere between the 80 to 90%. And a lot of it's because of the confidence in the measurements, and just, being able to be so close in tune with what you're doing. And so that was for me one of the more fascinating things around how you were able to manage that at such close, at such a close mark to make sure you didn't go over while having this sort of ability to make sure that you're looking after the employees and managing burnout, which, that's a very hard thing to manage because once you go over that line, you ultimately have to go to burnout or moving deadlines.
Yeah, we're definitely not perfect at it. We try our best and we get it right most of the time. What makes it a little easier for us, we're a CAS practice with 95% recurring revenue. So that already makes the whole process a little bit easier. When you get everybody over to that recurring revenue model and you know what's coming every single month, and we don't have a lot of client turnover, our clients come, they love us, and they stay forever, it makes the whole process a little bit easier. But it is also years of data, and we constantly changing the way we look at it. We've actually just released a new model for looking at our timesheets in the last 5 weeks, that has allowed us to be building even an earlier warning system so we can see problems approaching, and be a little bit more proactive in planning.
I love it. Does anybody else on the panel have thoughts about, value pricing, billing by the hour, how you do it? Any other thoughts?
I think
Jennifer, do you have
we sort
thoughts?
of fall right in the middle. I think because we
Yeah,
do track time, but we consider it a metric. Like we are monthly recurring revenue for 95% of our business, but it is an interesting metric for us to use. And we consider it a data point, and something to use in looking at the statistics of how we're running the business, but it's not used to micromanage. So
I like that. It sounds like, Zane, you're saying you don't use that data for micromanagement either. It's a cultural and it's a team member care related indicator.
yeah, for sure. I mean, we're 40 people, so there's a big team that we're trying to manage. Um, at times it can become a micromanagement tool if somebody's really struggling, right? I sat down with somebody the other day and go, I understand you're struggling, but let's have a look at your timesheet. And I showed them how they were project switching all the time. I was like, that's a problem. I can also see that you're doing a task for 20 minutes and then you're taking a 40-minute break. No wonder you feel like you're working from 6 o'clock in the morning to 10 o'clock at night because you're constantly on break. Your breaks are longer than your time. Like if we can just fix some of these small things that you're showing me you're showing it into me in your timesheet that you've got a problem with the way you're working. Well, let's work on that problem, try rectify it, and you'll probably feel less tired because it's not a total hour issue. It's the number of hours you're online for a day, not the amount of work. And sometimes that evidence is within the timesheet.
And it's funny when we did the interviews, I was curious to see kind of what was the total number of folks that track time. We get this where we'd be interview folks and they'd be like, "Well, actually, I track time." Turned out that 3/4 of folks are tracking time, and there's different rationales for what they're doing. And I guess it goes back to the question that Lori's asked here, which is, we currently are tracking time and billing utilization, but the staff doesn't seem to be motivated. And one of the things around, Zane, with you and your firm was the motivation for people to do the tracking of the time. And so what would be the recommendations or suggestions you would have, to be able to get those folks to be engaged, into the processes that you have in order for it to work more holistically?
I mean, part of it is I track every minute of my time, right? So I lead from the top. So that always makes a difference. I see sometimes when firms come in and the leadership are not tracking their time, but we're on a live tracking system. Everybody can see that I'm working right now. I'm on a webinar, what I'm doing. They can see who else is online, so they also know who can they reach out to if they have a problem. It's sort of creating that this is not just a tool to keep track of time. It's there to be able to quickly see, okay, you know, person A, B, and C is online. Let me reach out to them on Teams and see if they can quickly help me with this issue. So
Yeah.
it's creating that culture that it's okay to track time because it's not being held against you. It's being used to sort of benefit you as much as possible.
Yeah. I love what y'all are saying. There's a couple of you that have said transparency is key. Bernie, I think you said that, and Jason, that our team can see who's billing what. And Zane, you said your team can see the time that's being billed and keyed in. I think a lot of that stuff, we have capacity displays for our team too. We want them to see this is how you're matching and measuring up to your team member. That brings a pretty heavy level of accountability. That transparency is really key. It's needed for service firms to help them understand and benchmark how they stand against some of their other colleagues. That's important.
Well, our last question that came up for you, Zane, was what's the name of the live tracking system you're using? They're saying, is you're using Teams or what are you using?
QuickBooks Time.
Okay.
We started on T-Sheets and just moved over, and we've lived on that since day one.
Okay. So, it's interesting because Jason, we talked about just being more thoughtful around your time. So we do quite a bit around calendar blocking, which is the forward view versus the rear view mirror of time tracking. But it all comes back to to Zane. Your approach is using it not as a punitive weapon, but as a way to better manage everybody collectively to get the best outcomes. And I think that comes back to what we're saying here: transparency, leading from the front, and then being able to use it as a mechanism for positive good. That's going to get you that sort of better culture and that better aspect of it. So sorry, Jason, I'll get you back over. I know you're flipping the slides to go to Mike.
Okay. All right. Over to Mike. We're missing Ross, his dad, another father-son team. So, all right, Mike. So what's your systematic approach to cross-training team members without losing specialization? And how do you structure buddy systems, which is pretty cool, to handle seasonal surges while maintaining year-round employment? Y'all love my Claude questions, right, that I created. These are great. It's like, Claude, it's like I need to say, trim that a little bit, Claude. That's a little too long. But Mike, I'll let you cherry pick some of those and give us some thoughts.
No worries, no worries. Everybody is guilty, undoubtedly, of doing the same, Jason, so you're fine. But for us, I mean, cross-training really starts with, I would say, clarity of everybody's roles with a healthy dose of flexibility. And so everybody has a defined lane that they own, and we layer in adjacent kind of skills so they can stay flexible without losing that specialization. The core of this system and the reason that it works is our staff accountants. And so our staff accountants sit between the bookkeeping and the tax teams, and that helps considerably with that feedback loop. And it keeps it consistently extremely strong. And so those staff accountants are trained on both sides, the handoff of the books all the way over to the tax, and it stays clean. And they're the intermediary between both teams. And so we also cross-train a lot of our bookkeepers and our staff accountants on tax. And so we do this very, very intentionally because it allows us to avoid seasonal hiring entirely. And that's been extremely important to us. I mean, most people know, if not everybody knows, it is extremely difficult to attract and importantly retain seasonal talent. Now, they're out there, absolutely. There's some people who only want to work a few months a year, but you're less guaranteed to have them kind of come back on an annual basis. And we do a lot of tax during tax time, and of course, a lot of corporate work. So we've been very, very fortunate to be able to have a lot of those cross-training pieces. And so instead, we invest in those people who are with us year round. And so we've been very fortunate to hire those people who want to grow. And they're curious enough to stretch into the tax side or stretch into the bookkeeping side, regardless of whatever side they kind of started with. And so that curiosity and that excitement to grow really helps this kind of whole model work. And so naturally, we also believe that the tax side should be trained on the bookkeeping side and vice versa, so that when they all know and understand that full flow and the do's and don'ts, the work becomes considerably more consistent. I mean, years ago, we used to have bookkeepers, we used to have accountants. And while we still have that with the intermediary of the staff accountants, they didn't necessarily know if they did something wrong. And if that feedback loop doesn't exist, then how are they going to grow? Or are both sides swearing about the other side because they don't understand each other, right? And so whether you're talking about a feedback loop, whether that's a staff accountant or some intermediary, or just having a regular handoff conversation, I think that's extraordinarily important. And so kind of pairing that flexibility with those individuals and ensuring that they're following the proper process between all of that feedback, whether you're talking about systems being clear, whether it's a survey, whether it's a conversation, whatever you might use, You need to make sure you're not just thinking these things to yourself, and that you have an open culture where people are comfortable providing that feedback back and forth, or else people will start swearing or mumbling to themselves about the tax side or the bookkeeping side. And so to have people that are approachable and comfortable with all of this helps an absolute ton. And so those seasonal surges are not so surge-like, because we have bookkeepers that fully jump in kind of sporadically during tax time. And then during those quieter months, or no such thing as a quiet months these days, but during those slightly less busy months, they can kind of go back to what they were doing as normal. And I mean, ultimately, collaboration is genuinely one of our core values. And we live and breathe that. And that's not just internally between our departments, but that's with clients as well. And so we feel very, very strongly that's, I would say, the best way to run a firm. That certainly works for us, is to just make sure that feedback loop is there. You've got people training on all sides, and nobody's thinking anything behind the scenes that they're not comfortable sharing.
Mm. All right. So I'm going to say this back to you, Mike. So really, from a cultural perspective, to care for your team, you've wanted to cross train, right? And I think your buddy system pairs a senior and a junior team member specifically together. And you're wanting to do this. So you're, in a sense, you pushed everybody together more, right? Because they were kind of siloed, it sounds like. You pushed them together so they can start sharing feedback, helping each other. But culturally, you wanted to kind of minimize the seasonal surges so that you don't burn people out like during a tax season or something. Like, am I saying it right to you? Okay.
Absolutely. Yeah. The staff accountants are the glue in between the bookkeeping team and the tax team. And also that helps because what people can see that potential trajectory for themselves. So the bookkeepers, some of them will get excited and they want to learn a little bit more about taxes. And so we cross train everybody as best as possible so that they can see what the future might hold for them if they want that, right? There's nothing wrong with doing bookkeeping all day, every day, or taxes all day, every day. But they can see that path to growth. That certainly helps from a training perspective and an understanding perspective.
I love it. I wonder if anybody else on the panel, kind of this cross-training thought, are you pushing your team together or pushing different skill sets together? How do you think about that? And how does that aid you in culture building? Does anybody have thoughts on that? Because that's a pretty important way to build teams, I think.
Just me. I'm the lone wolf.
Just you, man. So apparently that's a crappy idea, Mike. Way to go. No.
All right, I gotta go. Bye. See ya.
Okay, bye. No, Zane, how do you do that?
Yeah, we do cross train, but it's just very different because we don't operate in the tax world at all. I mean, I cringe a little bit bringing tax and accounting together when I do cost accounting, because tax people hate cost accounting and cost accountants hate tax people because we're thinking in totally different ways. But we do a lot of cross training between like our juniors and seniors on jobs in terms of, hey, making sure you understand. So if somebody takes time off, that it is way easier for somebody to just cover for them, know how to do the basic tasks. And then we provide people with training to be able to learn the more advanced tasks so that they have that opportunity to grow from a junior to a senior on a project and be able to get, better development and, bigger projects to work on.
And I mean, Karbon is obviously the backbone of all of that, and shameless plug, no doubt, for them. But without having those processes, Zane, like it would not work. Like, to have people be able to step in and be cross-trained, and hey, you know what? We don't have any other capacity from the tax side. Well, let's just pull in a bookkeeper who's able to kind of help from that perspective. And we've got those processes kind of nailed down.
Yeah, that's the great thing, right? Everybody can see the tasks in Karbon and what's happening on that project. So when somebody steps out, the other person can step in. If they need training, well, that's the opportunity to put up the hand and we can give it to them.
It's interesting because when we talked to Gary Wood earlier in the series, right, he had the seasonal problem as well. And his whole, we talked about, which is I hire people for 12 weeks worth of work, but now what do I do with the other 40 weeks? And so his idea there was to stretch it to say, okay, we're going to make tax season year round. And he did his 3 seasons of tax work to be able to allow for that. And then we talked to a lot of folks, Mike, that were similar to you, which was, okay, we're going to be able to take our staff and flex them a bit. And it wasn't just even for the seasonality of what's happening, but it's also from a utility player amongst what we have, because capacity planning gets really difficult. When you do capacity planning at a high level, you're matching the amount of resources you have to the amount of work that you have. But when you actually move it to production planning, it doesn't as easily match up because you're not dealing with all the aggregated numbers. Now you're trying to like break people out into specific projects, doing specific things. And that becomes, in some cases, because of melt that, Jason, we talk about in the book, you start to get things that don't fit, the puzzle pieces don't all fit together. And so, Mike, it was interesting because we heard from many people around this ability to really be able to flex in the moment with when we're trying to produce things either in the month or in the season, because now I have these cross-trained folks that again may be more expensive, but the most expensive thing that everyone told us was I can't miss a deadline. If I let the client down, that's going to cost me referral problems. It's going to cost me a relationship issue, and I got to invest even more to make up for those differences. Would you agree with that, Mike?
I would wholeheartedly agree with that. I mean, it really is a win-win-win. It's as much about the team growth, team cross-training, utilization, capacity, all of those pieces. Like I said, it's certainly not for everybody, but it makes complete sense for us in the way that we're trying to build the firm. And again, I can't stress enough how much that's done for us in unexpected ways in regards to the feedback loop and the gelling of the team to be able to work just so seamlessly together.
Oh, very cool. Well, we're going to move to Jennifer here next, but Jennifer, I'm curious, Jade Consulting, do y'all do tax?
No, we're
No.
so
Okay.
bookkeeping and payroll mostly, but similarly, we do cross-train very similar because of what we
Okay.
have in Karbon and the tasks and so on. A lot of that we're putting in enough detail so that it can be bumped to another person. So if a review or an audit comes up for one person, pushes them over capacity, the other team members will be able to step in because everything is systematized, which I'll touch on a little bit more.
Okay. Well, that I was just wondering, do y'all cross-train in a similar way? And it sounds like y'all found that to be beneficial too.
Hey, Jason, this is Jason
Yep.
for Jason Bloomer. One
Mhm.
of the things we do in our firm is our CAS folks that they are separate, of course, but there's a tax person works with the CAS team, and in this new advisory world,
Mhm.
what we find is that the tax person and the CAS person are together. I mean, they sort of know how each other thinks. And then we have to relay that information to the customer when we have the meetings with them because the tax person is sort of helping with the tax ideas and the CAS person is helping with the normal accounting and reconciliation issues.
I love it. So I'm hearing y'all have people specialize and lean into a role, but I'm also hearing all of you say cross training is really a key to make your team strong. It's a culture move, I think, for y'all to not burn a team out on top of, a whole bunch of surged up tax work or something during a certain season. A lot of cultural moves y'all are making. Very cool. Okay, so Jennifer, let's ask you this big long question. So you went from, and this, we start the book with this. And I remember, Jennifer, when you said this, we're like, oh, she just summarized the book we're trying to write. It's so cool. You went from knowing everything when your team was smaller, happening in your firm to feeling like everything I thought I knew, I don't know anymore, and it happens when you start hitting around, this 10 to 15 team member. So what systems or structures did you implement to go get visibility back when you felt like I just don't know what's going on anymore?
Yeah. It wasn't nothing, through our growth, we went from 8 to 12 in a span of 3 months and then up to 15. And it was a huge jump and it challenged our processes or looking back more of our lack of processes, our infrastructure, our communication style. More than anything, it changed my leadership and who I thought I was as a leader and who I needed to be as a leader. I didn't have my finger on the pulse of everything anymore. I didn't know what everyone was doing all the time, and my confidence took a big hit. And yeah, really, it took me back a little bit, and it was a frightening moment, I guess, to really feel like things were out of control. And you can't scale confidently when you're sitting in a place of fear and uncertainty. So at that point, we had to like take a pause, take a breath, take stock of what we had, and look at the options of what we could do to get control back. And for us at that point in time, it was really leaning hard into systems and processes, into practice management, all of which is in Karbon. Again, another big plug for Karbon, but like all of the work that every single piece of work that goes through our firm lives in Karbon. All of the tasks are detailed in Karbon: time, budgets, capacity, full transparency into all our communication. So now instead of worrying about like waiting for a shoe to drop, I've got a dashboard that tells me what's happening. And I wasn't fretting that I was missing something all the time. So doubling into our systems and processes actually gave me the confidence to be able to continue to move forward and go forward a little bit more confidently as well. The conversations, like flipping over to the culture side. So that was one of the things to do to get my finger on the pulse and get my confidence back. On the culture side, we always try to do, like, our philosophy really is like people first, family first, people first, like that above everything else. And that's so much easier when your systems and processes are working really well, and having a level of transparency allows you to do that, because now my conversations with team members, they're much more personal, they're much more authentic, they're more about a true level of connection, as opposed to, trying to get up to date in a 30-minute one-to-one on everything that's happening with every client, or, trying to micromanage work, or scurrying about trying to get information that you fear you don't have. And the beauty of setting up our firm the way we have now is we have that level of transparency where we need it. We don't need to look into it where we don't need it. Like, it allows us to be able to step back a little bit confidently. And part of us as a remote organization, from a culture perspective, like the open communication is fantastic. We have daily touch points with the team everywhere, so no one feels like they're out on an island. So we've got team meetings, optional team meetings, office hours, coffee chats, like all this kind of stuff. Even Watch Me Works for newer team members. We do quarterly socials because it's really important to us to make sure that the team is working. We used to say we wanted a happy team, and then we realized that that's not a successful metric for anyone. And it's like, so we've revamped that to be engaged and successful, because that's something that could be measured and valued both from the employer and the employee side of things. And so that's something we've tried to lean in there. And both from a Jade perspective as well as a client perspective, we really talk a lot about like building something worth owning. And that goes for us as a firm as well as our clients. And we want to make sure that, the business isn't always, the business should be taking care of us at some point in time, right? It's not going to be our job forever to take care of the business if we've built it right. And so doubling down on the culture and making sure that you have successful and engaged team members, plus investing in systems and processes, like, it's all critical. And I feel like, as much as one's very technical and one's very human, like, they go together seamlessly within our firm. And that's what we measure a lot of our success against. Oh, Jason, you're on mute.
Jason, you're on mute.
It was
We love the
it was
animation.
beautiful, man. What I was just saying was amazing. I forgot.
Of course.
No, just kidding. No, it's so when you hit 8, when you start hitting the 8, 10, 15 team members, you do lose some visibility to some of the specifics of client service. And I love, Jennifer, what you said. This changed you as a leader. It changed how you lead, which is really cool. I think that's a big point in the first part of the book. We go into leadership. So scaling a services firm takes us as leaders to really change. And Zane even said it, if you want your team to track time, the leader's got to track time. And so we're the benchmark in a sense that we want our team to follow. Jennifer, did you have to step yourself up as a leader? Are there things you weren't doing that you needed to do to culturally call your team to work in higher ways?
In all honesty, of course there was. Getting out of the weeds. I use a hockey analogy for any like hockey fans. In the beginning, when we were like 5 players, I was the on ice captain, right? And my mad skills were just as better than anyone else's. Like when it came to QuickBooks, any of the apps, that kind of stuff. Over time, you get elevated to bench coach, which is good. You're still on the ice. You're still, that kind of thing. Well, I had to elevate myself to GM. And there really is a sense of discomfort that comes with that, because you're not part of the team the way that you were in the beginning. And I think ego kind of gets in the way as well, when your skill set may not be what it is of the rest of the team any longer. But getting out of the weeds was really critical, and saying things like, I don't do bank recs. I don't do bookkeeping anymore, right? Like, yes, I run a bookkeeping practice. I don't do bookkeeping anymore. So getting out of the weeds and being okay with that, and not letting your ego get in the way was a change.
I'm just got the hockey, sort of like,
I love the hockey
it's up. I'm
analogy.
like, well, most folks, when they're the technician, they start the business, they want to be the one that's scoring the goals. But then when they get the 8 to 10 people, they feel like they're the goalie, just trying to like make sure they save everything from going into the net. And the one thing you don't want to be is the enforcer on the ice because nobody likes that. So I'm just like,
No,
I was just kind of going with that, Jennifer. I was like, that's pretty darn good.
I like the goalie one. I hadn't thought of that.
yeah,
Right?
it's
But
good.
as the GM, if you elevate yourself to that point, like the team is the one making the plays and they're supporting each other. And by stepping out of that, the team supports each other. They have each other's back. They're the ones getting the assists on the ice, and performing for the fans, which is our
Mm,
clients. So
yeah,
it's a really validating thing to be able to step back and actually still see your team executing on such a high level.
yeah.
And there's a question that came in, and Zane, you answered as well. Just throw it out to the group though. Is how do you formalize those daily touch points and those check-ins? Like, what do you do? Zane mentioned, you have a documented process for it, and you check on people. Um, and so, what do you do, Jennifer?
So we have like a mandatory team call on Tuesdays, and it's like kind of firm wide. Thursdays is an optional call, a lot of chit chat, and then we do open office hours Monday, Wednesday, so that anyone can just, if I sit here in my office, I might open a Zoom call for an hour, and anyone can pop in with anything, and we'll have different people do that depending on sort of who needs the support. And then teams, messaging each other through teams and knowing everyone has that. But there is an optional touch point. So no one has the ability to say, they were struggling, they didn't know what to do, they weren't sure how to come forward. It's like we're giving people those options every single day to have a voice. Our team is 15 now. I see Samantha. 15 women all across Canada.
I love this. It's good. So as you grew, Jennifer, you were like, I can't see everything. I love the hockey analogy where you had to kind of move yourself to, ice coach, then the GM. That's a real reflection of what it feels like. We eventually get off the ice and then our team are winning, right? We're out there watching them win and they're not needing us anymore, which is cool, right? And I wonder, has anybody else felt a call to a different type of leadership as you've grown? It's required you to change as a leader, and maybe you leaned on structure and processes, which you have to have when you're larger. But I wonder if anybody else on the panel changed as a leader or was forced to. Mike, do you have any thoughts on that?
Tons of thoughts. So I mean, when I started with YBL, I was just doing bookkeeping, and then I was doing taxes, then I was doing corporate taxes, you name it. I interestingly, and about 10 years ago, I would say, I had a conversation with Ross, who's my dad, and I said, that I have absolutely no interest in being a traditional accounting firm and reviewing corporate tax returns until the end of time with having our partnered silos here. And he was just shook to his core. He's like, what do you mean? That's just how it works. I don't understand what you're even saying. And so I really kind of broke it down for him and said that my time and the company's on behalf of the company, it'd be much better served if I was focusing on operations, strategy, marketing, sales, and kind of all of this big picture stuff. And so what ended up happening was it took me years and years to delegate all of my work, to document all of the processes, to transfer everything over. And I spent a lot of time focusing on being a leader as opposed to just being the person who was doing those corporate returns the best in the office or whatever that might have been. So it was a major mindset shift for myself and my dad to be able to understand that this is really where we need to focus our energies, right? I cannot just be reviewing returns all day, but also be the leader that is checking on this, checking on that, and focusing on these things. So it's, in hindsight, it's just a normal natural evolution, but you have to make sure you're focusing and giving the appropriate amount of energy and efforts to your team that they deserve to be able to do that and spend that time. And I personally, I didn't want to do that. I had no interest in doing that. I don't even love that part of it at all. So it worked out to being a win-win.
I love it. Okay, we're running out of time now, Ian. This
We still have
always
we
happens.
still have a little bit more time. I do want to throw the one question and it comes in the
Okay.
book. We talk about it. So again, you can check out the website and get the book. But uh, you know, the question really came around pod structures, and so there's pod structures in terms of getting, high levels of economies of scale and productivity and profitability. And then the question here was, did you actually use it for the ability for management of the team and to do things in aggregate to take those sort of frequent processes of checking in on the team and making sure we're tracking where we're going. Do any of you do that in terms of using the pod, maybe having pod leaders or meeting with the pod to have the weekly meetings, daily calls, those types of things?
Can I add real quick? The question from Stacy is she's trying to eliminate calls she's doing on her own,
Right.
maybe as the leader owner. So did you implement a pod structure that freed you as the owner to go be the GM the way you should have been? Curious what, Zane, you came off mute. What are your thoughts? And then Jennifer.
I mean, we've got like pod light. We basically split the team in two and said, you guys on this side, you guys on this side, and we're going to operate. When it comes to planning, when a new project comes on, we'll look at capacity in each pod and then identify who the best fit is in that. The reason we did that at 40 people, if you had way too many combinations of people you worked with, it became really, really hard. And it does ratchet up the number of calls because you need to be checking in on your different projects, your different teams, your different account managers, your different leaders. So we split it up so you would just have less potential combinations of people that you would work with, which just naturally reduced the number of phone calls that you would need in a month. And, phone calls are great if they're intentional, but when you just have a ton of them to get through, you lose the intentionality because then it just becomes a tick box exercise. Let's get this completed. And a lot of focus gets lost when you have that. So that split for us made a big difference in just a little bit more focus on these are the people I work with.
I want to throw it over to the one person who's run a business for 48 years, which is Bernie. And Bernie, what sage advice can you give in terms of, you've run a well-run machine and an operation, and, what is your leadership style and how has it changed through the years?
Well, the change has been pretty dramatic because I'm sort of like Jennifer. I'm not an ice hockey specialist being from the South, but it's it's sort of the same kind of
Your
thing.
dad was from Canada.
That's true. My dad was a Winnipegger, so but he moved south as soon as he could. But, but the big change for us and for me is definitely moving out of the day-to-day accounting, cash work, tax work. I do still do a lot of individual tax work in the sense that I meet with our customers. I don't do any kind of tax work where it's information that's dropped off and done. All of mine is relationship type of dealings. But what we found, and Jennifer, once we went above 15 folks, we hired a COO um, to really be over both of our divisions, our wealth division and our accounting division, and that has been invaluable because it's taken a lot of burden from me and Jason, and that he's really running our show so that we can, we don't really have to be here most of the time or some of the time now, and that's really helped us a lot. But for me personally, Ian, it's completely different than the days when there were 10 or 12 of us and before Jason came, because I was doing a lot of the accounting work and probably not managing a firm as well as it could have been managed. So that's sort of how it's changed for me.
Yeah.
But we do have back to we were talking about team leaders. We do have we have we call him a captain, team captain for our tax folks, and one for our interns and our college interns, and then one in our CAS department as well. So that's sort of how we manage the three areas.
Cool. You have pods. Jennifer, were you going to mention something about leading through pods or just groups of people together?
We haven't moved into pods yet. It's something like at 15, we're still enjoying sort of people working across, we kind of call it cross-pollinating, like different people working. So it's not too specific, but it's something that we're definitely looking at as we grow. We've just hired a bookkeeping and customer experience lead, which is, freeing up Michelle and I from being so in the weeds with the team, answering sort of day-to-day, stumbling blocks that they need to get through. So it's working out really well. So yeah, it's making sure your ego doesn't get in the way of hiring that next great person too.
Yeah, that's good.
It's one thing again, and Jason, you can take us home, but one of the things that we talk about in the book, which a lot of you guys gave a great light and told your stories and whatnot, which is as the business grows, you have to put that scaffolding. You have to be able to create the structure by which it can happen. And you ultimately have to lead from the front as a leader, being able to do the things that are outside being the technician. You have to be able to create the culture where others can be doing that, and then you're able to take on what is required of you being a leader of a firm of that size. And so, Jason, you want to take us home with all the rest
Yeah.
of the details?
Yeah, this is good stuff. So check out the book that just launched. It is now on Amazon, which is exciting. And you can go to our scalewithpurpose.info and sign up for a list where there's some things we're going to be giving away. The book has a lot of resources in it. And it's the book is culminated from our own work, Ian, growing and scaling our companies for close to 30 years and just talking to smart leaders like are on this panel. Man, we stole so much stuff from the interviews from people. It was pretty amazing. So this book is full of all of these people's stories, tons of stories from leaders that are actually growing and scaling their firms. And we make a point. Nobody's got this figured out. So if you're listening to this panel going, wow, why do they have this figured out? They're just not sharing all their dirt with you. We all go through some troughs of mud in this work. It's just part of it. It's very human centric, a very relational part of what we do. It forces you to be a certain kind of leader. So nobody's got this figured out. And we make a point in the book that, these are ideas, you're going to tweak and change them. But join that list, and we're excited to have the book out. And I'm pumped that Karbon is allowing us to do these series and bring these smart people on. So thank you, Ian, and thank you, Karbon.
I want to say thank you to everybody here that's been on the panel. Thank you for your time, but also thank you for your stories. Thank you for your advice, and thank you for helping to give hopefully those that are listening in. We got a bunch of chats coming in. Every one of those pieces of advice makes us have better firms, and they're hard to run. They're really hard to run.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, cool. All right. Thank you, everybody. We're out of time. Thank you for staying 1 minute over. We'll see you on the interwebs. Take care.